Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of Women in Retail Talks. Today's conversation is with Emily Culp, CMO of Keds USA, and Melissa Campanelli, co-founder of the Women in Retail Leadership Circle. Listen in as they discuss Emily's career, failing forward, and purple squirrels. And now, on to the show.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to episode 10 of Women in Retail Talks. I'm Melissa Campanelli. I'm the co-founder of Women in Retail of the Women in Retail Leadership Circle, and today I'm so excited to be joined by Emily Culp, who's the Chief Marketing Officer at Keds, the iconic sneaker brand, and we're going to be talking about Keds and Emily's career and all that kind of good stuff. So thanks so much for joining me today, Emily. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Melissa, for having me. It's a pleasure speaking with everyone.
Great. So I'm just going to kind of jump in. Let's talk a little bit about your career and your sort of trajectory. I know you've worked at Rebecca Minkoff. I think you had some background in the beauty industry. So why don't you just tell us a little bit about your background and how you ended up there at Keds?
Sure. Yeah, great question. It's the way I like to think of my background is almost like a reverse funnel. And what I mean by that is I started about 20 years ago in digital marketing. So back in the 90s when this was, just to put it in context, when people still thought Amazon wasn't a viable business. And obviously times have changed. But what's interesting and what I mean by the reverse funnel is I started in digital, and then I was fortunate enough to spend 10 years on the agency side going public with companies like Digitas and working at unbelievable branding firms like Ogilvy and Mather. So I learned every single channel and really the backbones around brand marketing from the ground up on the agency side. And then the past 10 years, I've been fortunate enough to pioneer and start new groups or functions within companies such as Estee Lauder. As you mentioned, I also worked at Rebecca Minkoff, and most recently I am at Keds right now. And what drew me to Keds was actually, I wasn't actually seeking a new opportunity, but to me it really was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to work on a brand that has over 100 years of heritage, but is truly in that interesting intersection point where it's an opportunity for a marketer to come in and help further modernize the brand and connect with our consumers. So to me, that heritage, coupled with the fact that the company is also very open to thinking about marketing in an omni-channel way, those two principles together, and frankly, the DNA behind Keds around female empowerment, it was the perfect trilogy of things and an unbelievable opportunity, hence I couldn't pass it up.
Yes, great. And I should also mention that Emily is on our board of Women in Retail Leadership Circle, so you definitely have a great perspective on the idea of women empowerment, and you have a passion about it. So let's talk a little bit about that. I mean, I know Keds has been around forever, as we know, and let's talk about how it's focusing on women now and some of the campaigns that you guys have done.
Well, I think, to me, one of the most exciting things joining Keds and Wolverine Worldwide was when I had this moment when I joined the brand and I actually got multiple boxes of archive information. And this was basically in preparation for our centennial celebration. We just turned 100 this past week. And
oh, wow.
Yeah, thank you. We're using all the appropriate things. Yes, not to show our age. But where it's phenomenal is back in 1916, Keds truly, authentically was the only brand creating shoes for women to empower them. So what really resonates for me is rarely do you have an opportunity to work with a brand that has been doing something for 100 years that's still relevant today. And what I mean by this is, go back to 1916, think about what the world was like then. Women didn't have footwear options where they could play sports, where they could do different things and be comfortable. And Keds actually empowered them and enabled them to have a solution where they could actually do what they want to do and go where they want to go. And what's amazing about that is that's still true today. So if you look at Keds as a brand right now, our shoes can be worn in boardrooms, to subways, to all kinds of other activities, and it's still a way to empower women and to enable them to do what they want to do.
Yeah, so it has a great history of focusing on women, it sounds like.
It does. It has a ton of history, but I think as I said too, what's really nice is it still continues today. And when I joined the company, I formed the Keds Collective, which is an unbelievable group of women, and the commonality between all of them is they're creative entrepreneurs who are multifaceted, so whether they're artists, technology, or fashion. So you have amazing women like Allison Williams to Ciara to Tori Kelly, etc. And what's dynamic about these women is they embody our principles, which is they're authentic, they truly believe in female empowerment, and they're not only focusing on their careers, but they're also focusing on helping other women.
Wow, that's so exciting. So can we talk a little bit about some of the marketing that you're doing around it? Around these women and about the brand? Yeah.
Yeah, so in terms of the specific marketing, we're doing omni-channel campaigns featuring our Keds Collective. We also continue to tap into social media marketing, where we always like to include our consumers into whether it's product innovation or different things that we're up to. And the other types of things that we're doing in terms of marketing that many folks have seen other in the U.S. or especially in China is we're doing a tremendous amount of retail activation. So whether it's the Macy's Herald Square store windows where you see huge versions of Keds shoes, to stores in China where you will be able to see mono retail and wonderful video screens showing different moments of capturing our Keds Collective in our product.
Cool. Can you just tell me a little bit about what you mean by mono retail?
Just a single brand. So I think that's
okay, sorry.
Yep, of course.
Yeah, that sounds great, though. That's so exciting. This is such a great combination of, celebrating the brand and its history and women and all of that. So it sounds like a lot of fun.
It really is, and I think most recently some other examples of how we're marketing is we're also really trying to pull together all the different channels we have to connect with our consumer. For example, we just launched a Made in the USA shoe, which is quite a feat, making a shoe from all the labor to the shoebox to the tissue paper, all sourced in the U.S. And
wow.
And what's really exciting about this and some of the marketing initiatives is shortly we'll be having our Centennial Edition come out in Footwear News, but we are selling this through Barney's, and we did stop-motion videos around it and also did some in-depth interviews with our head of product, who's also a woman. And then you have our head of sales, who is a woman, and then you have me, who's the head of marketing, who's a woman. So I think it's really important for consumers and hopefully our peers to see not only are we talking about ladies first since 1916, but we're actually walking the walk as well.
Wow, that's great. I'd love to see, go check that out. Are they still for sale at Barney's?
They are. You can go in store or online. Yeah.
Cool. Great. Well, let's jump ahead a little bit to a lot of our listeners love to hear from executives such as yourself, successful women executives, and they love to hear about some of your leadership techniques and some of your sort of secrets to success, I guess. And one thing that we found resonates is the idea of failing and how most people today, or most successful women we're finding use failure as a positive. So they're failing forward, they're learning, they're not making a mistake. So can you talk about a time that may have happened to you and how you sort of turned it around, made lemonade?
Yeah, absolutely. Without getting into too much detail on the specific initiative, I can absolutely think of one. To me, it was around innovating something in a large company, and it was taking what I would deem sort of a sacred cow, meaning something that hadn't been touched in over 40-some years, and bringing it forward to the digital age in over 33,000 doors around the world. I succeeded in the sense that I delivered the entire initiative on time, on budget, etc. I would say where the failure was for me was it was still relatively early in my career. I underestimated how important building all the relationships was across all the different functions, and how the KPI for that initiative wasn't just speed and being on budget, but also making sure that people felt like they were part of the entire journey and bought into it. So that's something that I have taken with me and remind myself that it's not always about being first to market or the speed, if you will. It's also making sure that you have buy-in amongst your peers and that people feel really included throughout the whole process.
Wow, that is a great lesson, and it's great that you've been able to carry it around and that you were able to, realize that it was a lesson.
Yes.
So that's great. So kind of on the same path there, I mean, can you tell us a little bit about your leadership style, and maybe some of our listeners, you can share some best practices around leadership with them?
Sure. Yeah. Just in no particular order, I guess from a style perspective, anyone who knows me well, I'm extremely transparent. I think it's really important personally. If I don't know the answer, I will tell you I don't know the answer, and I'll let you know when I should hopefully be able to get the answer. I really believe in terms of leading by example. One of the fundamental things to me is the golden rule. So I treat everyone on my team how I would want to be treated, hence the transparency. I really value integrity. I also value a sense of humor. I admit mine is probably a little dry or sarcastic, but I think it's important to have a sense of humor as well. Other things that I really value in terms of style, I'm insanely curious, from everything on how a meteor is, created, if you will. That literally was a thing this morning. To how can we produce 100% sourced and labored, made in the USA shoes in Big Rapids, Michigan in the U.S. I think it's really important to be insanely curious. And then finally, I think in-person communication, I can't emphasize enough. Again, going back to speed, there are points where I think there's efficiency you can get, of course, by texting, emailing, sending emojis, every other form of communication. I really have impressed upon my team, especially the millennials on my team. If you are spending more than 1 or 2 responses to an email, where humanly possible, if the person is in the same country as you, let alone the same floor, please get up and go talk to the individual versus volleying emails. I actually spend a tremendous amount of my time every single morning and most nights calling different regions around the world so I can have conversations with them versus just trading emails, because I think a lot can get lost in communication. And as a leader, again, I think it's very important to be in touch with your team and be able to be agile and respond accordingly in order to motivate people.
Wow, I completely agree with that. I've been taking to the phone a lot more frequently than sending emails, because it's, maybe it's a little bit more of an effort, but it makes a big difference to hear someone and to, not so much about face-to-face with me because I work off-site, but just the idea of talking to somebody and getting their healing. You can hear sort of nuances and stuff that you wouldn't get in an email. So that's really great advice.
Yeah, and that's exactly the most important part. I mean, if you've ever done it, there's 1 or 2 little modules you can search pretty quickly on Google or what have you. But if you send someone an email and then ask 2 or 3 people to interpret it, it's fascinating to see the variance. And as you said, if you have a conversation with someone and just saying, sure, I'll meet you in 5 minutes, you can tell very quickly whether I'm excited about that and I'm looking forward to seeing you, or this is not something I'm looking forward to enjoying. But in email, you can't understand that emotional piece, and it's very hard to develop your EQ within a business environment. And that's a skill that I think is unbelievably important, regardless of what role anybody plays.
I mean, is there something that impresses you when meeting a candidate that, or perhaps something that turns you off, or what do you think about when you're doing?
No, great question. I really, what I look for when I am building out teams, first and foremost, I really usually love to bring people with me I've had multiple people who have worked for me in 2 or 3 different companies. So I think, again, it goes back to building loyalty and trust. Where it's not possible, or in terms of expanding a skill set on a team, I call it looking for purple squirrels. And what I mean by a purple squirrel is somebody who, again, has a high degree of EQ or emotional intelligence, unbelievable integrity, obscenely curious, of course, intelligent and competent. And then the part that makes them a purple squirrel is that they can oscillate from what usually would be considered 2 or 3 different functions very quickly, meaning a art director who can have an amazing on-point aesthetic on a shoot, and then 3 minutes later be deep diving into social media data and understanding the insights and extract the data and then optimize accordingly with her team. So I think it's really important to find people who understand sort of and can move very quickly. It's an agile nature, if you will, and who embrace the ambiguity.
Wow, that's great. Yeah, it's sort of like the left brain, right brain person.
It is, and that's why I call them purple squirrels, because it's very hard to find people who actually are good at both, but also enjoy both. Because I think at the end of the day, what makes somebody really good is when you're super passionate about what you do, you don't count the hours that you're spending in your industry or white papers or meeting new people because you love what you do.
The last question is another sort of ties into some of the other feedback we get from our members, our listeners, and that is the concept of like work-life balance. And so in general, I mean, how do you relax? I mean, I think you have kids, if I'm not mistaken, and you have a huge job, and you just moved to another city. So, I mean, how do you relax? What are some of the things you do, and maybe some of our listeners can take something from that?
First and foremost, I consider it work-life integration. I don't actually use the word work-life balance, and the reason why I'm very specific on that is work-life balance implies, in my mind, that you can magically create this balance and everything's completely synced up and perfect. To me, it's work-life integration. There are days where, whether it's just presenting to our board of directors and it's amazing, to the following day, possibly you forget a permission form for your first grader or preschooler and, you're getting frantic calls or texts. So there are days when it's going swimmingly, days where it's challenged, but I think one of the most important things to me is figuring out how to integrate it. And also how to set an example for other women and men in my team. As I've progressed in my career, I've actually been more open about when I need to step out to deal with a family issue, whether it's on a business trip or even during the workday. And vice versa, even my first grader looks at all my presentations. I present them to him and my little 3-year-old because I want them to understand what I'm doing, and I want them to see the passion that I have around it. And it's really important to me that it's all integrated in some capacity. So that's my thoughts on that. But in terms of how I actually relax, probably twofold. One is it is unbelievably relaxing actually playing with a 7 and a 4-year-old. I think it's so important to be able to unlock your inner child at points, because I think increasingly in business it's very challenging, especially the more senior you get. And to me, for better or for worse, my children get up at 5 a.m. So many days before work, beyond email, I may have done watercolor, I may have done Play-Doh, I may have played Chutes and Ladders. But I think what's really amazing about that is I'm relaxed, I'm focused on it, I'm connecting with them, but it's fun. Like, you have the permission to be fun, or be silly, I should say. And then the final thing on a total other end of spectrum is I weightlift, and I absolutely love that as well.
Wow, that's exciting. Wow.
Yep.
So you find that to be a better workout than, say, like aerobics or yoga or something like that, or?
You know what? I absolutely love all of those things, and I used to do a ton of yoga. My challenge with yoga is you have to commit usually to a specific time or class or location, and I just find that's too hard right now, whereas weightlifting, I can, I have a set routine, but if I need to cut it short or I could go a little longer, it's a little bit more flexible and it's at my pace.
That is so interesting. Wow. I love hearing about all this stuff. Great. Well, thank you so much, Emily. This has been great. I'm so excited that we finally got a chance to chat. So with that, I just want to thank Emily Culp of Keds for her time. Also, please check out our podcast channel, Women in Retail Talks, which is on WIRLC.com. And Women in Retail Talks is also available on iTunes and Stitcher. And please follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Pinterest at WIR Leadership. Thank you so much, everyone, and I look forward to joining you on another episode of Women in Retail Talks.